With a contract status update and more, this is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we move on, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Rambles with notifications on, and don't forget to like the video. As Roxanne Perez will defend her NXT Women's title against Jordynne Grace at NXT Battleground, Dave Meltzer added in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. We'd been told that Grace and Raquel Rodriguez were possibilities to face Roxanne Perez at Battleground, but even by then, the deal with Grace had apparently been cut. Most in TNA had no idea of the deal TNA management cut with WWE. Most in NXT didn't know, but there were more than is being let on that did know, since we were told off the record a week ahead Grace was one of the names listed as possible. After making a surprise appearance at MLW's Battle Riot event, Mark Henry said this about it to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. I've been friends with Court Bauer and Alex Greenfield forever, and sometimes you have relationships with people. It's not the same as being friends with people. I know those guys. They were friends of mine, and when you're a friend of somebody, you don't have to talk to them every day to still have that respect and admiration for them, and that's what it is. Especially Alex, man. We just get each other, and the people that I have those relationships with in wrestling, if they call me and say, even if it's last minute, and they call me and say, hey, would you be willing to do this? All right, well, let's do it. I just want to come see you. So that's what it ended up being able to see the product. I've watched it online, but to be able to see the product in person and meet a lot of the talent, which a lot of them I already knew, and you start to see some of your friends, kids in the business, it just don't get better than that, and I had that over at MLW. During an episode of his What Happened When podcast, former WCW commentator Tony Schiavone spoke about the Who Killed WCW docuseries by Vice, and even defended former writer for the company Vince Russo. I have watched some of the Dark Side of the Ring, but I won't watch that because I know what it is. It's a hatchet job. I see these people talking to the camera in Dark Side of the Ring, and I'm going, what are we doing? Have some freaking respect for the business that paid you a lot of money. I hate it that Russo gets all the that he gets. It's not fair. Vince Russo worked endlessly, tirelessly to put a product together. He did, and he was good to me, and was a good guy, and I'm honest about that. Speaking of that docu-series, former WCW President Eric Bischoff responded to criticisms made by Bret Hart, where he claimed Hulk Hogan was the puppet master and Bischoff was the puppet. As Eric said this on his 83 Weeks podcast. Did I expect Bret Hart to be crabby and grouchy and blame the world? Sure, we hear it every time we hear Bret. He's angry at somebody, nothing new there. I saw him in Australia a couple of weeks ago. I was there and he was there, and I said hello to him, acknowledged him, and met his wife, and she seems like a very nice person. But you just look at this guy from across the room and he looks miserable. I don't know, maybe deep down inside he's a very joyful person, but he looks miserable. It's the same old Bret didn't have a clue what was going on in WCW. Bret would literally show up 20 minutes to an hour before showtime and leave. You wouldn't hear from him the rest of the week. He was as disconnected as you could possibly be. I'm not criticizing him for that. He was going through a lot at that time. Commenting on Becky Lynch taking a break from WWE following her contract with the company expiring, Bianca Belair told Denise Salcedo, you know, I'm just super supportive of Becky, of whatever space she's in right now, what she wants to do. Everyone knows how pivotal Becky was for my career, not just inside the ring, but outside the ring as well. She's someone that I've always been able to go to and lean on for advice, just as a friend. I would call Becky my friend. She's someone who has stood up for me me, led me, and taught me. We see everything that Becky has done for this division and for the women's division, being one of the 4 horsewomen. If you read her book, you saw what her goal was to turn this women's division into, and I think that she was a huge part of that. She's just so inspiring, and what she's done with her title as an NXT champion, and how she helped the women down there, what she's done with Liv Morgan in the ring, and just in general. She's not a legend in the making. She's a legend. I love when Becky is here in WWE, and I'm just super excited for her for whatever she wants to do right now. But I think that she's the GOAT. I think that she's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day for sure, but I don't see that time coming anytime soon. But no, I'm just super excited for her with where she's at right now. With Cody Rhodes recently mentioning that he wanted to have a manager in WWE, Arn Anderson said this about potentially filling that role, telling Busted Open Radio, "In case you don't know, I am 65 and my liver is 127. I am on short time and I don't have a lot of time, probably on the planet, much less in the business. But I am dedicating whatever time I have left in one way or the other to helping my son Brock, who is breaking in, get a spot in the business with some company and get established, and help him get to a position where he can make a living, he could contribute, and be a valuable asset to whatever company that uses him. That's what I want to dedicate whatever time I have left for. Would I come back in the right situation for a short-term something with Cody? If anybody out there thinks it's a good idea, let me know. I don't know. That would be something because he and I never had that conversation." Recalling how he sang with Tyson Fury following his loss at the Clash at the Castle event in 2022, Drew McIntyre said this to Cultaholic: "I was so happy getting Clash in Wales and getting the first stadium show since SummerSlam 92 and getting the main event. I wasn't happy getting screwed and the worst moment of my life singing that stupid song afterwards. But I'm very happy that you persevered, you believed, you kept working, and you might just get a redo, and it's not just a redo. It couldn't be any more perfect. It's literally in Glasgow." In that same interview, Drew McIntyre would be asked if he and CM Punk are similar, to which he said, "No, absolutely not. I believe that maybe now I have some similarities to Punk in the past, and not the terrible similarities that include a genuine and horrible person, and I believe he still is just very good at putting on an act, but he was anti-establishment. He did speak his mind, even if people didn't always agree with him or believe him. It was his truth, and he always marched to the beat of his own drum and spoke the truth, even if it meant to be a dick because he was, but now that's not the case. He is the corporate shill. He is always trying to do whatever you can to make the bosses happy, kiss their butt to make sure you can justify that big contract." Well, Drew McIntyre says exactly how he feels, marching to the beat of his own drum and doing what I know is right for not just myself or the company, and I'm being a good person while I do it. And the thing that he hates most probably about me is that I am more CM Punk than CM Punk now. Teasing a future showdown against Bron Breakker, Drew McIntyre told the Indian Express, "I see some people coming up with a lot of hunger and a lot of potential as well. One particular person of interest is Bron Breakker. He has been tearing through the competition, but at the same time, he's got to learn how to harness the anger in the right direction. I'm sure I'll see him down the line." Speaking about Chris Jericho's current run as the Learning Tree, Adam Copeland noted on Busted Open Radio, "Right now, I'm watching Jericho and man, he's so much fun to watch. He's recreated himself again. He's leaned into what the naysayers have said and he's took it and run, and now he's bringing Brian Keith and Big Bill with him. He's the perfect person to bring those two guys along and get them the spotlight, get their character. Clearly, they can both do character work. Brian Keith, he might be one of my favorite characters all of a sudden. I love it. Then here's this 7-foot, 300-pound ripped dude being Professor Positive. I love it. So there's something to recreation. I just don't know if this is the instance for that with me. For that same interview, Adam Copeland commented on his fractured tibia that he suffered at Double or Nothing, which required surgery, as he said, "You're welcome for my stupidity. It was less a leap and more a fall. It's part of the albatross of the pro wrestler." And you go, "No, I got this." Your brain tells you, "Yeah, got it, no problem. Sure, 15 feet, yeah." Then once I land, I go, "Oh, but I'm 50, huh?" The good thing was I landed and truly I was, okay, it's not my Achilles because it was the same leg that I tore my Achilles on. I was like, well, Achilles held. That's cool. Maybe it's an ankle sprain. Maybe it's a bone bruise. It felt like ankle and tibia or fibia jammed. I got up, finished the match, and I felt a little click. I was like, okay, I got this. Finish the match, get to the back. I was like, huh, interesting. I started moving it, playing with it. I was like, it doesn't hurt that much. So then I walked out of the building. I walked straight into emergency, and they went, "What are you doing? Get off your foot, dumbass. You have a broken leg." I was thinking, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So here we are. But yeah, I feel like that's the albatross of the pro wrestler. You get out there and you want to give them a show, and I think I could have got the same mileage if I'd done it off the top rope. So live and learn, but at the same time, I finished the match. That, more than anything, I was like, okay, I got through it. There was no way getting that close, knowing what we had coming with Gangrel and everything. It's like we had to see that through. We had to. And hopefully also throughout this story, it's a reminder of what House of Black brings to the table too, and let people understand, oh yeah, by the way, there's this group of badasses that have an insane presentation. So a few missions accomplished and a setback. I had the surgery on Monday and it was a success. I guess it got a little complicated just because of where the break is. It's kind of right above the ankle joint, which is called a peon fracture apparently. So the cartilage between your ankle and your tibia and fibia got squished, and then the break. I guess there were shards of it too, so they had to try and compact it all with the plate and the screws. I haven't looked at an x-ray. I'm not going to, just because that stuff, I don't find that helpful. But with this injury, I've realized DoorDash is pretty cool. I started using DoorDash. I didn't know how to use it. I had to get Beth to show me how. I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of Dr. Mario. Praising Paul Heyman for helping him to get a job with WWE, Nunzio told Steve Fall of Ringside News, "Yes, there was a lot of talk, and Paul Heyman did follow through. He told me from the beginning. The problem was when WCW closed down and then ECW closed down within the same month, all this top talent became available for WWE. So I was on the market with top guys like Ric Flair and others from WCW who didn't have contracts. Many of them ended up getting contracts and sitting at home for a while. But besides that, guys like Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, and others from ECW and WCW were available. I was a low man on the totem pole and wasn't being considered much. I got lucky because of Paul Heyman. I also worked in the merchandise office for Paul along with Tommy Dreamer and Devin. We were selling merchandise during the week while I worked at ECW full time. We used to answer phones and mail out shirts to fans who never knew they were talking to us. I made up names and used to push the FBI merch, saying it would be a great birthday or Christmas gift. Tommy Dreamer mentioned in an interview that when he saw Paul Heyman on Raw after ECW closed, he wanted to kill him. Dreamer had an idea of going to WrestleMania 17 and confronting Paul Heyman. Towards the end, when ECW was closing down, Paul was trying to save it, saying he was going on interviews trying to get us a deal. Sure enough, we saw him on TV, and we already knew ECW was closing, but then he popped up on TV. Years later, it was said Paul was on WWE's payroll even when he was with ECW trying to keep it afloat. I reached out to Paul after he showed up and he actually got back to me. He told me he would try to give me a job. At that time, he wasn't a head writer at WWE, just an announcer. Later, around 2002, when he started taking over booking, I got hired. Paul Heyman was the one who called me. It was a couple of years after ECW closed when I got a call from him. He congratulated me and told me not to say a word to anyone as Jim Ross and John Laurinaitis would be calling me. Laurinaitis called and offered me a tryout, which led to a job. Towards the end of ECW, Paul Heyman was always good to me. I worked in the office for him and got paid weekly for both office work and wrestling. Sure, there were some skipped paychecks, but he made up for it in other ways. If it weren't for Paul, I wouldn't have had a 10-year career in WWE. When ECW closed, some people were upset, but Paul helped me get my dream job at WWE. I respect him for that. In the end, things worked out for me. If I had badmouthed Paul publicly, it might not have worked out as well. Everyone has their own experience with Paul Heyman. Some people are upset with him, but I can only speak to how he treated me. ECW gave me fame, and Paul helped me get a job with WWE. Even after Paul left WWE, Vince McMahon didn't hold it against me, and I stayed employed. So while some were upset, I ultimately got where I wanted to go because of Paul Heyman. Giving your thoughts on TNA Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace being involved in NXT, Lola Vice said this to Under the Ring. I think it's interesting. I think it's very unique. I'm a fan of Jordynne. She's incredible. She's very strong. I think Roxanne is going to be put to the test this Sunday, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes because after this underground fight, my goal is to get that championship from Roxanne Perez. Responding to a user who was wondering where Baron Corbin has been despite being drafted to SmackDown nearly a month ago, Baron responded, "I'm on vacation for a few weeks." Taking to X, Will Ospreay revealed his role for an independent show as he wrote, "Last night I was helping produce Pro Wrestling Eve. I had an absolute brilliant time getting to work with all the girls as they put on such an incredible show from top to bottom. Spoke with Dan and schedule dependent, I'll be about more. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help out in any way I could. It was such a pleasure to work with you all." Here's the clip from that post. As Andrade recently became the WWE Speed Champion, this was said regarding plans for the star, as Fightful Select reported that we're told Andrade is still likely to appear on SmackDown despite being booked to win the WWE Speed Championship. With Gigi, Dolin of NXT having been off programming lately, an update was provided by Corey Brennan of Fightful, who said, "I will begin a broad answer here for you guys. So we've been looking into Gigi's situation a bit, and that most of we can't confirm now is that her storyline where Ariana Grace was dropped. It was dropped for a number of reasons, but we have not been able to confirm them as of now, and now there are no immediate plans for Gigi Dolin at this time in NXT. In regards to previously inaccurate reports of AEW Collision's ratings being posted, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer said this to a user on X. "Sorry, but the ratings I listed were accurate. The others were not. They were supplied by WWE to the reporter. Sorry for people mad because everything I stated was correct, and this is not a new story. It's a story that dates back many years and has been talked about and written about the entire time." In other words, people mad at the accurate story are the ones who complained without checking something easily verifiable. Ultimate irony. AEW President Tony Khan replied, "These are the same predatory business practices that Jim Crockett Promotions plus many former wrestling territories faced in the 1980s. I'm very grateful to all of you wrestling fans who watch AEW, and AEW is here to stay." Touching on the likelihood of NXT going the road for live events, this was said by Corey Brennan of Fightful Select. "I've asked about a lot, and I've asked a lot. I've asked talent production, I've asked people close to coaches, I've asked people close to producers, and not a single person said to me that this is in plans. If it is in plans, it's being kept private and talent is not aware. If they're going on the road, especially so many of these wrestlers based out of Orlando, they would need to let them know in advance." Going over the contract status of an AEW star, Lucha Libre Online noted that Pentagon Jr.'s contract with AEW is scheduled to expire between August and September of 2024. He is scheduled to become a free agent. There is interest on the part of the WWE in his services. This free agency will be extremely interesting. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter added, "Penta wasn't happy sometime back when he wasn't allowed on shows with CMLL talent, but to a degree that looks like it's been worked out." Tony Khan indicated he was confident Penta would stay with the promotion. Others have said Penta was looking at buying the rights to his name to make sure he could take the gimmick to WWE if necessary. The belief in other circles is Penta is looking at exploring his options when his current deal expires. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all later.